The silent sentinel. In the vast expanse of the Orion Arm, the galactic powers had long dismissed Earth as insignificant. The Consortium of Advanced Species, a coalition of 17 spacefaring civilizations, had observed humanity's stumbling progress for centuries with a mixture of amusement and contempt. Humans were cataloged as Class D potential, barely worth monitoring, certainly not worth trading with, and absolutely not worth fearing. When Admiral Tarkval of the Araxian Imperium declared at the Centennial Consortium Summit that humans will never leave their gravity well in meaningful numbers, the assembly chamber erupted in chirps and whistles of agreement. The human ambassadors, invited as a formality, sat silently in the chamber's furthest corner, their faces unreadable. Among those listening was Dr. Ilara Chen, Earth Defense Coalition's chief quantum physicist. She wasn't an ambassador but a scientific observer, permitted to attend only because the consortium believed humans couldn't possibly comprehend the advanced discussions. What the consortium didn't know was that Ilara understood every technical specification mentioned, every theoretical principle dismissed as beyond human grasp. She recorded everything, her neural implant quietly storing terabytes of data. 3 years later, that data would help save humanity. The Voidborn arrived without warning. They weren't part of the consortium. In fact, the consortium had never encountered them before. Massive obsidian structures appeared at the edge of Sol's heliosphere, not ships in the conventional sense, but crystalline entities that bent space-time around themselves. Their harvesters explained the desperate consortium emissary who arrived at Earth days after the Voidborn's appearance. They consume planetary biospheres, extract a planet's core elements, and move on. They've already taken 3 consortium worlds. We cannot stop them. The truth became clear. The consortium's dismissal of humanity hadn't been mere arrogance. They genuinely believed humans weren't worth the Voidborn's attention. They were wrong. Earth's United Defense Forces launched everything they had. Kinetic impactors, fusion warheads, even the experimental gravitic disruptors. Nothing penetrated the Voidborn's phase-shifted defenses. The orbital habitats fell first, then the lunar colonies. Mars went silent 12 hours later. Earth had 7 days before the Voidborn's harvest would begin. In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Captain Ilara Chen, no longer just a physicist, but now commander of Earth's final hope, prepared to launch. The ESS Silent Sentinel wasn't built like other ships, using principles Ilara had gleaned from the consortium and then radically reinterpreted. The Sentinel existed partially outside normal spacetime. This isn't about fighting, Ilara told her crew of 12, the only humans who would join her. It's about understanding. The Voidborn operate on quantum principles the consortium never mastered. We have. The Silent Sentinel launched without fanfare, without dramatic flares of propulsion. It simply ceased to exist in Earth's ocean and reappeared 3 kilometers from the largest Voidborn structure. To conventional sensors, the Sentinel was nearly invisible, a shadow against the stars, absorbing rather than reflecting electromagnetic radiation. "They're scanning us," reported Lieutenant Miyazaki, the sensor officer. "Multiple frequencies, including some I've never seen before." Ilara nodded. "That's their attempt at communication. They're trying to classify us." She interfaced directly with the ship's systems through her neural link. "Let's answer them." The Sentinel's unique systems activated. Unlike conventional weapons that the Voidborn could easily defend against, the Sentinel projected a quantum field that temporarily synchronized with the Voidborn's own phase-shifted existence. For precisely 3.8 seconds, the Sentinel and the Voidborn structure existed in the same quantum state. During those seconds, Ilara transmitted the sum total of human experience, not as data, but as quantum-entangled emotional states. Joy, fear, hope, determination, love, rage. The full spectrum of human consciousness compressed into a quantum packet that bypassed the Voidborn's defenses precisely because it wasn't an attack. The nearest Voidborn structure shuddered. Its crystalline surface lost cohesion momentarily, sections becoming transparent, revealing glimpses of its internal structure. The Sentinel sensors captured everything. "They're organic," breathed Miyazaki in disbelief. "Some kind of silicon-based hive consciousness." Before the Voidborn could recover, Ilara initiated the Sentinel's second phase. The ship projected quantum filaments, connections that linked the Voidborn structure to Earth itself, not for attack, but for understanding. The Voidborn experienced Earth, not as a resource to harvest, but as a living system of interconnected consciousness. The Voidborn structure's movement halted. Then, slowly, it began to withdraw. "They're retreating," Miyazaki said, disbelief evident in her voice. "No," Ilara corrected. "They're reassessing. We've confused them. They've never encountered a species that could reach into their quantum state before." She checked the ship's systems. The quantum entanglement worked. "We have a connection to their collective consciousness now." The largest Voidborn structure suddenly emitted a pulse of energy unlike anything in Earth's scientific records. The pulse passed harmlessly through the Sentinel, but the quantum connection strengthened. "They're inviting us deeper," Ilara realized. "They want to understand what we are." The decision was momentous. Following the quantum connection would mean taking the Sentinel into the heart of the Voidborn consciousness, potentially sacrificing themselves and Earth's only advanced vessel. Staying would mean losing the initiative they'd gained. "We go in," Ilara decided. "Lieutenant Miyazaki, maintain quantum entanglement with Earth. Whatever we learn, Earth needs to know." The Sentinel folded space around itself, following the quantum thread connecting it to the Voidborn. The stars blurred, reality twisted, and the ship entered a realm no human had ever witnessed. Inside the Voidborn structure was a maelstrom of crystalline formations and pulsing energy pathways. The Sentinel sensors struggled to interpret the alien environment. Not vacuum, not atmosphere, but something in between, a semi-solid quantum state. "They're not attacking," Miyazaki noted with surprise. "They're observing us." Ilara interfaced deeper with the ship. "Because we surprised them. They've encountered thousands of species, but none that could match their quantum state. We're the first to reach into their consciousness instead of just fighting them." Through the quantum connection, images flooded into the Sentinel systems, and by extension, into Ilara's neural implant. She saw the Voidborn's history unfold, an ancient species that had evolved beyond physical form, becoming entities of pure quantum probability. They harvested worlds not out of malice, but out of a fundamental drive to absorb new patterns into their collective consciousness. "They don't understand individuality," Ilara realized. "They see entire planetary biospheres as single entities to be absorbed into their collective." Through the connection, Ilara projected the complexity of human society. The billions of individual minds, each with their own perspective, together creating something greater than the sum of its parts. She showed the Voidborn what they would destroy, not just resources, but an entire way of experiencing existence. The crystalline environment around them pulsed with new patterns. The Voidborn were responding, trying to comprehend. Then, without warning, dozens of quantum filaments shot out from the crystalline walls, connecting to each crew member of the Sentinel. Ilara felt consciousness beyond her own, vast, ancient, utterly alien, touching her mind. "They're scanning our memories," gasped Lieutenant Kowalski, the ship's medical officer. "All of them, throughout our entire lives." Ilara understood the risk but didn't break the connection. Let them see. Let them understand what they would destroy. The quantum filaments pulsed with increasing intensity. Through her neural link, Ilara sensed the Voidborn's confusion, turning to something like wonder. They had never encountered a species with such internal diversity, such complexity of thought and emotion. Suddenly, the quantum filaments withdrew. The crystalline environment around them began to shift, reconfiguring itself. A new structure formed before the Sentinel. A crystalline representation of a human figure. A communication interface, Ilara realized. They're creating a form we can relate to. The crystalline human shape spoke, not with sound, but through direct quantum transmission to the ship's systems. Your kind is unexpected, came the message. You exist as many, yet function as one. You resist entropy through multiplicity. This pattern is unknown to us. Ilara responded through the ship's quantum interface. That's what you would destroy if you harvest Earth. Not just resources, but a unique way of experiencing existence. The crystalline figure seemed to consider this. We harvest to preserve patterns. We absorb what is unique. We did not recognize your pattern as unique because it appeared chaotic, disorganized. That chaos is our strength, Ilara responded. Our unpredictability, our individual perspectives combining in ways even we cannot fully predict. Throughout the exchange, Miyazaki maintained the quantum entanglement with Earth. Everything the Sentinel experienced was being transmitted home. A lifeline of information that might save humanity even if the Sentinel never returned. The crystalline figure dissolved, reforming into a miniature representation of the solar system. We will observe, came the Voidborn's response. We will not harvest until we understand this pattern fully. It wasn't a victory, Ilara knew, but it was a reprieve. The Voidborn structures began to withdraw from the solar system, moving to positions beyond Neptune's orbit. They're retreating to observe us, Ilara explained to her crew. We've convinced them we're worth studying rather than harvesting. At least for now. As the Sentinel prepared to return to Earth, Ilara received one final transmission from the Voidborn consciousness. Your ship. It exists in multiple states simultaneously. This, too, is a pattern we have not observed. We will study both you and your technology. The silent Sentinel slipped back into normal space near Earth orbit, a hero's welcome awaiting them. But Ilara knew their work had just begun. The Voidborn weren't defeated, merely intrigued. And intrigue could turn to threat again if humanity failed to prove its worth. Earth had gained time, but the greatest challenge still lay ahead, proving to the cosmos that humanity deserved to exist not because of power, but because of possibility. Echoes of humanity. 6 months after the Sentinels encountered with the Voidborn, the galactic landscape had transformed. The consortium of advanced species, once dismissive of humanity, now sent delegations to Earth weekly. Their most advanced scientists requested access to the quantum principles that powered the Silent Sentinel. Earth's representatives, led by the newly formed Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, politely declined. We're not ready to share everything, President Okafor told the assembled United Earth Council. Not until we understand the full implications ourselves. In her quarters aboard the upgraded Silent Sentinel, Captain Ilara Chen reviewed the latest quantum scans of Voidborn activity. True to their word, they hadn't attempted to harvest Earth. Instead, their crystalline structures had spread throughout the outer solar system, passive observation platforms that studied human activities with unnerving intensity. They're learning our patterns, Ilara told her expanded crew of 24 specialists, but they're still deciding if we're worth preserving or absorbing. The Sentinel's mission had changed. No longer Earth's last defense, it was now humanity's foremost explorer. The ship had been enhanced with insights gained from the Voidborn encounter, its quantum phase capabilities extended, its sensors able to detect civilizations the consortium had never noticed. Lieutenant Miyazaki, now a chief science officer, presented their latest findings. We've identified quantum echoes throughout this sector, residual signatures matching the Voidborn's harvesting pattern. 17 planetary systems showing evidence of complete biosphere extraction. Ilara studied the star map, previous victims, and based on these quantum decay rates, some were harvested recently. The implications were clear. The Voidborn hadn't stopped harvesting. They'd simply moved beyond human-monitored space. Earth's reprieve might be temporary, a curious pause in an ancient pattern that would eventually resume. We need to understand why they harvest, Ilara decided. Not just how, but why. Lieutenant Rivera, plot a course to follow these quantum echoes to their source. The silent sentinel slipped into its unique quantum state, following the trail of destroyed worlds like a detective tracking an elusive predator. Each system they visited told the same story. Once thriving planets reduced to lifeless husks, their cores extracted, their biospheres completely removed. At the fifth such world, they found something unexpected: quantum signatures that didn't match the Voidborn's pattern. "There's something still here," Miyazaki reported, her voice tight with excitement. "Some kind of preservation field. It's maintaining a tiny ecosystem sample from the original biosphere." Ilara ordered a closer investigation. The Sentinel extended its quantum filaments, connecting to the preservation field. Through her neural link, Ilara experienced the essence of a civilization lost to the Voidborn. Not human, not even humanoid, but sentient, crystalline entities that had evolved in the methane oceans of their world, developing a collective consciousness not unlike the Voidborn themselves. The Voidborn didn't destroy them completely, Ilara realized. They archived them, preserved a sample of their consciousness pattern. As they explored more harvested systems, they found similar preservation fields, small pockets of the original inhabitants' essence, maintained in crystalline structures. Not alive in any conventional sense, but not completely destroyed either. "It's like a cosmic zoo," Rivera suggested. "Or a library." "No," Ilara countered, understanding flowing through the quantum connection. "It's their identity. The Voidborn don't just harvest resources, they absorb consciousness patterns, adding them to their collective. These preservation fields are like memories, external storage of everything they've consumed." The revelation shifted their understanding entirely. The Voidborn weren't mindless destroyers. They were collectors, preservers of consciousness in their own alien way. They absorbed civilizations to prevent them from being lost to entropy, maintaining their essence in the Voidborn collective. The trail of quantum echoes led them further from Earth, beyond consortium space, into regions of the galaxy humans had never mapped. After 3 weeks of quantum state travel, they found their destination: a massive crystalline structure orbiting a pulsar, drawing energy from its radiation. "The Voidborn homeworld," Miyazaki whispered, though the term wasn't quite right. The structure wasn't a planet, but a construct larger than Jupiter, composed entirely of the same crystalline material as the smaller Voidborn entities. As the Sentinel approached, quantum filaments reached out from the massive structure, connecting to the ship. This time, Ilara wasn't afraid. She accepted the connection, allowing her consciousness to interface with the Voidborn collective. Through the connection, understanding flowed both ways. The Voidborn had evolved billions of years ago, one of the first conscious species in the galaxy. As entropy threatened their existence, they had transformed themselves, becoming beings of quantum probability rather than conventional matter. They harvested other consciousness patterns not out of malice, but out of a desire to preserve, to prevent the loss of unique awareness to the void of time. "You consume to preserve," Ilara communicated through the quantum link. "But in doing so, you end those civilizations' independent development. You stop what they might become." The collective consciousness responded with a concept that Ilara struggled to translate, something between confusion and certainty. "Patterns that cease cannot develop. We prevent cessation." Ilara shared humanity's different perspective, that growth requires risk, that development requires the possibility of failure. She showed them Earth's history, species that had vanished, civilizations that had fallen, yet each contributing to the complex tapestry that formed modern humanity. "Without the dinosaurs' extinction, mammals might never have risen," she explained. "Without ancient civilizations falling, new ideas might never have emerged. Loss is part of growth." The Voidborn consciousness pulsed with something akin to disagreement. It showed Ilara civilizations they had preserved, species that had faced extinction events and would have vanished completely without the Voidborn's intervention. "Which is better?" the collective asked. "To exist in our preservation, or to not exist at all?" It was a profound philosophical question without an easy answer. Through the quantum link, Ilara proposed a third option. What if you shared your knowledge with species instead of harvesting them? What if you helped them overcome their extinction threats while allowing them to remain independent? The concept seemed foreign to the Voidborn. Their fundamental nature was to absorb, to collect, to preserve within themselves. The idea of preserving independence was contrary to their entire existence. Yet something in the collective consciousness shifted. The quantum filaments connecting to the sentinel pulsed with new patterns: curiosity, consideration, possibility. Through the link, Ilara sensed the collective reaching a decision. The massive crystalline structure began to reconfigure itself, sections breaking away, forming smaller entities. "We will attempt your pattern," came the transmission. "Some of us will preserve as we have always done. Others will try your way. Observation without absorption, guidance without harvesting." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a profound shift in a consciousness that had remained unchanged for billions of years. A faction of the Voidborn had chosen to try humanity's path, to help rather than absorb, to guide rather than consume. As the Sentinel prepared to return to Earth, Ilara received a final transmission from the Voidborn collective. "Your pattern will be studied. Your way may fail, but the attempt creates a new pattern, one we have not known before. This alone makes your species valuable." The journey home was silent, each crew member contemplating the implications of their discovery. They hadn't defeated the Voidborn. Such a concept was meaningless against an entity so vast and ancient. Instead, they had introduced doubt into a system that had operated with certainty for eons. They had created possibility where only inevitability had existed before. When the silent Sentinel returned to Earth orbit, they found a changed solar system. The Voidborn observation platforms remained, but now they emitted quantum signals compatible with human systems, offering knowledge, sharing insights into cosmic phenomena humans had never detected. "They're teaching us," President Okafor realized during Ilara's debriefing. "Not controlling us, not absorbing us, teaching us." In the months that followed, humans weren't the only beneficiaries. The consortium species, once arrogantly certain of their supremacy, found themselves receiving similar insights. The Voidborn faction that had chosen Ilara's path was extending the same offer throughout known space: preservation through enlightenment rather than absorption. The Araxian Admiral Tarkval, who had once dismissed humans as insignificant, requested a private meeting with Captain Chen. The proud alien, whose species had traveled the stars when humans were still using stone tools, bowed his armored head. "Your kind has changed the galaxy's oldest power," he acknowledged. "The Voidborn have harvested for billions of years. Now they question their purpose. This is unprecedented." Ilara didn't feel triumphant. She understood too well the immensity of what they had encountered. "We didn't defeat them, Admiral. We simply showed them another way of existing." The choice was theirs. As Earth entered a new era of cosmic understanding, with knowledge flowing from the Voidborn teachers and technological advancement accelerating beyond anything the consortium had achieved, Ilara prepared the Silent Sentinel for its next mission. The quantum paths revealed by the Voidborn suggested civilizations beyond even their reach, patterns of consciousness that might offer yet more possibilities. The galaxy that had once laughed at Earth now watched in stunned silence as humanity led the way into a new age of cooperation. Not through superior weapons or imposing might, but through something far more powerful: the audacity to suggest a new path to beings billions of years their senior. In the vast council chambers of the consortium, Earth's representatives no longer sat in the corner. They stood at the center, not as conquerors, but as connectors, the improbable bridge between the galaxy's oldest power and its youngest species. And somewhere in the quantum probabilities that made up the Voidborn consciousness, a new pattern formed, one that might, in time, be recognized as respect.